Preview season rolls on, and today it's all about the Cal Golden Bears. Welcome back to Armchair Analysis. Hope you guys are having a fantastic. Was it Saturday? My goodness. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Saturday start to your weekend. We carried on once again. Yesterday we went over the Auburn Tigers. We've gone through. This is our now fourth time through each conference as we again roll on with preview season, and really excited because we're starting to get to some teams that have potential to compete and turn themselves around from what they were in 2024 moving into this 25 season. We'll talk about that, all kinds of different things about this Cal team that I like, don't like, and what the real expectations are for this program. I ask, though, that if you are new here, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Remember, you know your team better than I do, so if you are a Cal fan tuning into this video, don't tune out just because I missed something. Let me know in the comments because it helps inform me for later on when we start doing conference championship predictions, when we start going through actual game previews that we do here on the channel once a day. When we do all of that stuff, that's the time to let me know what you guys think and make sure that I don't have a lack of information when we go forward. Because without that, again, me covering 130, 140 teams doesn't really doesn't always go the way you'd expect it to, or doesn't always go the way you'd think it would for one person. So I thank you guys for tuning in either way, and hope you enjoy the video. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the Cal Golden Bears. And to do that, to talk about 2025, we must first, as usual, talk about 2024. This is a team that went 6-7 last year. They were 2-6 in ACC play. They really were outmatched, and part of that was injuries. Part of that was just, I think, a team that I don't want to say knew they weren't going to be together, but knew that it was kind of we're all playing to move on to bigger and better things, I think would be the way to put it. Last year averaged 25.1 points per game. That was 90th in the country. 22.3 points per game allowed. That was 36th. And then they were turnover margin per game of plus 0.4, which was good for 32nd in college football. This is one of the better teams in terms of those stats that we've come across so far. The biggest thing and the biggest question mark now is you lose Fernando Mendoza. He leaves, goes to Indiana. Jade Knott, now at Oklahoma. Javian Thomas goes down the road to UCLA. And then Jack Indries leaves and goes to Texas. The core of this team is no longer there in the program, especially the ones that were going to be around. You also lose Noel Williams, who was an All-American last year, led the country in interceptions, if I'm not mistaken, had 7. He was one of the best players in college football, one of the best cornerbacks in college football. You lose him as well. This entire team, the entire identity of this team has switched, has changed, and now you got also 3 coordinators. You have 2 co-defensive coordinators, and then Brian Harsin coming in, all of them year 1 in this program. So with all the change and all the things that have gone wrong or right in some ways, if you really want to look at it that way, what does Cal look like in 2025? So at head coach, of course, Justin Wilcox remains and has been relatively successful. I think that he's done better than a lot of people gave him credit for, or maybe even thought he would do to this point. Brian Harsin, as I just mentioned, comes in to be the offensive coordinator. This will be his first year, and I don't foresee this being a bad move. It's hard to say. Who really knows right now what the offense is going to look like, because again, there's so many things that we just don't know. On defense, you got Vic Soto and Terrence Brown. Now, if I completely butchered Vic's name, my mistake. I'm not very good at the is it Samoan? Is that the right way to put it? I'm not very good at the Hawaiian names as it is, so forgive me. But both these guys, year 1 as co-defensive coordinators, they've been in the program each for 4 years, but who really is going to be how do these two kind of work together? How does this defense work under them? Let's take a look at the offense, though, by personnel. And at quarterback, it's really one option. It's Devin Brown, the transfer from Ohio State. I think he's going to be a really solid option at quarterback. I think he can do everything that Fernando Mendoza did. I'm not really, if we're looking at this team, I don't expect a drop off in production at the quarterback position, at least not for the reasons that you would expect. At running back, Kendrick Raphael and Brandon Hyde Jr. Raphael coming over from NC State, Hyde coming over from UTSA. These guys are going to have to replace Javian Thomas and Jaden Ott. Those are big shoes to fill. That's the way you put it. This is going to be the key to this entire operation. If these two get it figured out and these two can become key players in this offense and really dynamic players in this offense, guys who take attention away from the passing game, this Cal offense is not going to be terrible. But if they cannot figure out how to run the football, which is a question mark with certainty as it was last year and coming in again this year, a bunch of new offensive linemen, and again, 2 brand new running backs to the system, really a new entire offense to the system, it's not far off to say that this run game does not figure it out. You look at the wide receiver room. Jacob DeJesus comes over from UNLV, and that is going to be he is the man on the offense. He is your star player if you're looking at it from, I guess if you're thinking about college football 25, college football 26, the star, the impact player, Jacob DeJesus is your impact player if you're Cal. Tron Grizel is going to be here, along with Dasmond James, transferring in from Arkansas. 3 solid wide receivers, but Jacob DeJesus, again, is your wide receiver 1 with 0 questions asked. At tight end, you got Jeffrey Johnson. He's going to have to replace Jack Indries. How does he replace Jack Indries? I would say it's going to be tougher than we think. Offensive line, 4 transfers coming in. It's a wait-and-see game with this offensive line because we do not know if they're going to be good or bad. I don't have high hopes, but I'm not going to say they're going to be bad. I really do play the wait-and-see game because you don't know how an offensive line is going to work together versus, between the tackles, when you have 5 players, are they playing for themselves? Are they playing to do their job? Or are they playing to achieve a common goal? You can kind of tell when you have an offensive line that's playing for themselves and to improve their own stock, and guys who are just playing to improve the team. You'll see what I'm talking about. There's teams such as LSU, for example, last year. They had multiple first-round picks, yet they still couldn't run the football last year. It's teams like that. It's moments like that you'll kind of see and understand when you watch an offensive line play. And I watch them more as how they work as a unit versus what the names are. Moving over to the defense. 7 of 11 players return from the 2024 roster. Last year's leaders, returning leaders from last year in tackles, Cade Uluwave, 71 tackles last year. He also leads the team at returning in interceptions with 1. As a matter of fact, he's the lone interception on the team returning from last year. Everybody else is gone. The returning sack leader is Ryan McCulloch, 3.5 sacks last season. Nate Burrell returns tackles for a loss with 5. And then Hunter Barth returns as a forced fumbles leader with 2. The question that remains for me is who becomes the guy? Again, you're replacing, or you have to find a way to replace, or a term I've heard recently, I think it's because I watched Moneyball recently, replacing the aggregate. You lose 7 interceptions from Noah Williams last year, an All-American caliber player. Do you have another All-American caliber player on this roster? I don't believe that answer is yes. So when you look at this team, can all secondary members put together and recreate the production of one? That's kind of what you're looking at if you're Cal, and that's what you're going to want to see versus that one person, because you're not going to find that one person on this roster. As I see my dog's hair flying in front of my face, I apologize. We will see how this defense goes and looks. they have a lot of questions to answer if you're Cal. And the biggest thing and the biggest thought process that came to my mind when I was looking at this team is just that between the NFL and the portal, this team lost a lot. Devin Brown is trying to help lighten the load. Jacob DeJesus is going to try to help lighten the load. And then who on the defense replaces? How do you solve the problem of trying to replace production from just one player last year? This Cal team is filled with questions, and should they figure it out? Should this team be a cohesive unit? Should this team work together towards a common goal? The schedule's workable to the point where they do go 6-6, or maybe even 7-5, maybe even 8-4 if they really put it together. But this is a team that I think there's a lot more riding on what these other teams are on their schedule, and what the known things are with these teams versus the others. So let's go ahead and take a look at it, and let's understand kind of what I'm getting at here. So this Cal team, goes on the road week 1 to face Oregon State. That's going to be a tough one. Malik Murphy coming over, but the thing with this team is that Oregon State is kind of doing the same thing Cal's doing. They are trying to figure out how to replace all the things that they have lost over the last couple of seasons. It's going to be an interesting week 1, but you would think that Cal is still going to be a favorite here. Texas Southern, that's a good game to figure it out. And then you get Minnesota. And even though that game's in Berkeley, Minnesota is going to be I'm going to say one of the most underrated and one of the most under-talked about teams this year, given what the Big Ten is and should be. But Minnesota is going to be a really good team, and a team that this is going to be kind of your measuring stick. Who are we for the rest of the season? That game right there on September 13th. You go on the road back-to-back. You'll face San Diego State in Acrisure Stadium, and then you'll go on the road across the country to face Boston College. And that's going to be a big deal when you come to think about it because of travel. You're going to come back to the West Coast and play Duke. You'll get a bye week, and then you'll have 2 Friday games, North Carolina and Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech being on the road, more travel. You'll get Virginia at home, Louisville on the road, and then you close out with Stanford, which is supposed to be a road game, by the way, that Stanford game is, and then SMU. So let's go ahead and predict the schedule. And as I said, they're going to go into this game against Oregon State as favorites, and I think they're going to come out with a win. I think they're more talented. I think that this is going to be kind of, you come out, figure out who you are, what you are, and this game is going to set a little bit of a tone in its own right, but it's really just going to say, okay, we're either on the right path or we got a lot of work to do. Either way, I think they still win this game. You get Texas Southern, that's going to be another win. Then you move on, you play Minnesota, and again, this is going to be one of those games where this is your measuring stick game. Are we as good as we think we're going to be, or is there a lot more work to do? This game, I do not really have an ounce of doubt in my mind that Minnesota wins this game. I think they are much better. I think they are really just a team that's going to be overlooked in a lot of categories, but I think they could be a fringe top 25, maybe even right on the outside of the top 20 team by the time the season's over. Again, I haven't looked at their schedule too much. I haven't gotten to Minnesota, but that's my early thoughts on what this team I think has potential for. San Diego State, even with this game on the road, I think Cal will get the win here. Going on the road to Boston College, I think the travel, the biggest thing with Stanford and Cal, SMU's a little bit lighter because they're only traveling one time zone from Central to Eastern in a lot of their cases. But for Cal and Stanford, they're going all the way across the country multiple times throughout the course of the season. How does that work and how does that affect you, especially when you're not necessarily a great team? You know, Oregon and I'll even venture to say Washington here in 2025 are going to be teams that are good enough they can overcome the travel. This team, it's hard to say, and I think that this is where we start to see a little bit of trouble for the Bears here. They're going to lose to Boston College, and they're going to go ahead and lose to Duke at home as well. With Boston College, it's simply the travel. these two teams are really comparable. As for Duke, I think Duke is much better. Duke has a really light schedule to this point in the season. I think it'll be a point of, okay, we're out of here at 3-3. Can we get 3 more on the back half and get to 6? It's not impossible, but you will play North Carolina, and even though, again, I'm not a buyer into Bill Belichick, I am a buyer into some of the players around him and the team around this coaching staff, to the point where I can put that behind me. I think North Carolina will get the win. They'll lose on the road at Virginia Tech again. It's just travel. That's a really tough environment. I really don't see Virginia Tech being great. Again, I think this is kind of the Boston College thing again. Similar, but this game being on the road hurts a little more than it helps. You get Virginia at home. I think that's a good place to get another win. I think Virginia's improving, continuing to, but again, the travel. I think there's room for a win here at some point. This is where it is. On the road again, Louisville. Taking the Cardinals there. Again, the Stanford game's supposed to be on the road on November 22nd. And with that, I took the home team in this rivalry. The home team typically is the team that manages to get the job done in most cases, unless one team's just so much better than the other. This is one of those spots where they're both very similar, both kind of trying to figure out who they are. Taking Stanford, and then SMU taking the Mustangs to get the job done. So the over-under sits at 5.5. They're going to go under, and I really don't see that being too much different. I don't think they make a bowl game. I think that's the goal. This team wants to make a bowl game. It's just, it's going to be tough. I think that we're going to start to understand, and the teams are going to start to understand how important travel is and how important it is to be well-rested, well-recovered by, more likely than not, Thursday in the week rather than being ready to go Friday or even sometimes on Saturday in some of these cases. This is going to be a really, really tough go throughout this season this year. And I think there's building blocks. There's things that you can work off of, but it's a long road, I think, for Cal and Stanford both to be competitive in the ACC. As for their ACC championship odds, it's plus 6,000. And as for their national championship odds, plus 100,000, as most teams we've gone through so far have been. So again, sitting here, 4-8, 1-7 in ACC play. It's nothing to say that they're terrible. As a matter of fact, they could end up being, again, a 7 or 8 win team. The schedule is not the toughest. It's how they work through the travel. It's how they work through being a team that's not familiar with each other, let alone familiar with the play calling style of Brian Harsin and or the defensive coordinators. Just trying to figure out, again, who you are going forward as a university and as a program. So with that said, appreciate everybody tuning in again. Leave a like, subscribe, comment down below if you've gotten this far. Let me know who I may have missed, who on this Cal team I may not have given enough credit to, because it's very possible. This is a team that I don't want to say is unknown, but there's a lot of things and a lot of players on this team that may be unknowns for many people, to include myself. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm far above anybody in that regard. But again, let me know what you think, and let me know what you guys have. Do you think Cal makes a bowl game or no in 2025? Tomorrow, it's all about Utah. I'm excited to get that one going. Kyle Whittingham, rumors are last season as the head coach of the Utah Utes. So what will they look like going forward, and how will they bounce back off of the last couple of years just fighting through injuries and tons of them? After Utah, we got Wisconsin, and after Wisconsin, we have Oklahoma. So it's a really heavy-hitting week in terms of programs and how they're going to look. I'm excited for it. Hopefully you guys are too. Again, make sure you subscribe so you can stick around. You don't miss any of it. Over on the channel, you can find my playlist that I've put together of every single team preview we've done so far. Again, we are now through number 13 with this one today. So thank you all again, and I will see you tomorrow with the Utah Utes.